Chapter 41. Assassins. In the room, Lin Feng was sitting on his bed while meditating peacefully. Lin Feng had released his dark spirit and was focused on absorbing the qi which he gathered around himself. His sense of hearing when in this state was far above ordinary cultivators. If he wanted to, then he could even hear what was being said back in the restaurant. This was because of his concentration and his dark spirit, which was amplifying all of his senses. The qi of heaven and earth was uninterruptedly penetrating into Lin Feng's body. A faintly discernible white light had appeared. The qi felt like a strong wind which could turn into a typhoon at any point. It was his qi which was growing strong to the peak of the 9th qi layer. He was waiting to overcome the bottleneck and have a surge of power once again rush into him, and then Lin Feng could break through to the Ling qi layer. He would be able to kill those who opposed him much easier than before. With his skills and technique, he could even kill a 9th qi layer disciple without them even noticing anything. At that moment, some shadows outside were approaching the inn. It was clear that they were headed directly towards the inn. The group immediately entered into the inn unnoticed, using an incredible agility technique, which made them look like ghosts walking through the crowd. They were all carrying a bow which was made from ox horns. The strength of these bows was extraordinary. Cultivators of the qi layer would gain a huge amount of power from using these ox horn bows. He's in room number 2. It's best not to disturb him. That would be too troublesome. Let's handle this as quietly as possible, said one of the shadows who was standing outside of the group. The shadow was holding a feathered fan in their hand. They all quickly moved towards room number 2. No one within the inn had even noticed their presence. A short instant after, about 10 shadows had appeared in front of the door to room number 2. They were extremely agile and graceful. Almost no sound could be heard from their movements. Almost nobody could hear them. The only person who was aware of them was Lin Feng, who had noticed them before they had even arrived at the inn. The strength of the shadows varied from person to person, and it was impossible to tell their strengths from a glance. The shadows had grabbed their bows off of their backs. They then, with as little sound as possible, knocked an arrow into the bow and drew the bowstring back. Fire. The sounds of the arrows piercing through wood filled the air within the inn, causing many people to suddenly notice the sound. These arrows were so powerful that they broke the wooden door open completely, and within the room there was a thump, followed by a rolling noise. "Let's go," shouted one of them, taking the lead to charge into the room and check the results of what had just happened. When they entered the room, however, there was not a soul in sight. The wooden bed of extremely high quality had been damaged by the arrows. In the bed was a human-shaped figure which was made from various materials, but there was nobody there. Two of the shadows took the initiative to move farther into the room while remaining vigilant at all times. Suddenly, a whistling sound of a sword cutting through the air could be heard, followed by a terrifying thunderous roar. All that could be seen within the darkness was a set of ruthless and bloodthirsty eyes staring towards the shadows. Cold silver light flashed through the air. It was a sword. Thunderous roars echoed within the air. 2 horrifying screams could be heard from inside the room. The 2 shadows which had initially moved deeper into the room had come back into vision. This time they were corpses rolling along the ground, back towards the group. At the moment when these people entered into the inn, Lin Feng already knew that they were here. He originally paid them little attention and could not care for what their business was. He was in a trance-like state in the middle of his practice. When he heard them arrive in front of his room, he had quickly regained his senses and understood the situation. It seemed like they were coming to kill him. Lin Feng had been hiding inside the room, away from the door as to not be hit by arrows. He had been leaning against the wall. He had chosen the wall, which was a dead angle, so there was no chance of using a bow to strike him there. It was also impossible for the others to see him from outside. That was also very convenient, as he could ambush the enemy from within the darkness. When Lin Feng had seen the power and strength of the arrow which had penetrated into the room, Lin Feng had considered himself very lucky to have noticed them first. If Lin Feng hadn't hidden within that dead angle, he would have been immediately shot dead by the arrows. But while considering his good luck, Lin Feng's heart was also filled with killing intent. His body was overflowing with a murderous aura which made him seem like an ancient mythical beast. That's why he had immediately killed 2 people. He could not suppress the urge to kill. It was almost as if there was a demon waiting in the shadows. "Come, my sword has not tasted enough blood yet," said a bloodthirsty voice from within the darkness. Lin Feng gripped his sword tightly again, and suddenly his figure had completely vanished. 2 screams were heard from outside the room. Lin Feng had used his moonlight feather agility to move outside and kill 2 of the assassins who felt safe outside. As the other assassins outside of the room looked at what had just happened with horrified expressions, Lin Feng used the opportunity to jump out of the window. "Chase after him," shouted one of the assassins, taking the lead while clearly angry at the situation. Like wild beasts they jumped out of the window, each having a bloodthirsty look on their face. It was a rainy night, and it was unnaturally dark as the clouds blocked even the moonlight. If cultivators didn't have such amazing sight, they would hardly be able to see the road, especially when running at full speed. However, it didn't influence Lin Feng at all. Thanks to his dark spirit, he had amazing senses which were above others at his level. His 5 senses were extremely sharp and acute. He was able to see the road as clearly as he did during the day. The people following him were growing closer and closer with each second. The noise of their feet stamping on the wet ground had filled the air. The group was extremely large for just one person. The arrow flew past Lin Feng with a buzzing sound. Not far from his ear, the air itself was torn apart by the force created from the arrow. The one who just shot that arrow has reached the 9th Qi layer. His power is comparable to that of Lu Fei. They are all far from being weak. Lin Feng thought while a shiver ran down his spine. Lu Fei was at the 9th Qi layer and she was extremely strong. Besides, she also had an extremely strong arrow spirit. Mentioning how strong her arrows were was pointless, it was obvious to anyone who had experienced them. On top of that, those following Lin Feng had a power comparable to that of Lu Fei. They were powerful and very well trained. You are listening to Peerless Martial God audio on light novel Aloud. Lin Feng would have never thought that some people would come to kill him in the middle of the night. Why would they want to take his life? Another 2 arrows flew past his head. He was less and less convinced that he would be able to keep avoiding the arrows if this continued. Not only were these people extremely strong, but it also seemed that they had received intensive archery training. Their shooting accuracy was extremely high. If there was one flaw in his footwork, if he gave them one opportunity, a single arrow could kill Lin Feng. It won't work this way. If I continue like this, I'll end up exhausted without any strength left and they will be able to finish me easily. Thought Lin Feng while avoiding another arrow. He was feeling hopeless. Actually, all these people seemed to be at the 9th Qi layer. Besides, they could use their bows to the point of perfection, and they were working with each other in perfect harmony. It even seemed like they were moving in formation. Even if Lin Feng is better at using agility techniques than them, it seems impossible for him to break away from that group of assassins. Lin Feng's feet were splashing in the wet mud and his robes had become covered in a layer of mud. It was still raining heavily like before. Lin Feng's robes were completely soaked. Lin Feng dodged quickly to the side to avoid another arrow. He then suddenly stopped and then turned around in the blink of an eye, revealing his messy appearance. Moonlight feather agility. Die. In a flash, not only did Lin Feng stop running away, but he also used his agility technique to go back in the direction of his pursuers. Lin Feng skillfully wielded his sword which flashed in the darkness. Roaring thunder could be heard vibrating through the atmosphere and merging with the heavy rain in perfect harmony. Blood had started to flow onto the ground. The rainwater on the ground was turning red with blood. The shadows that were running towards Lin Feng had been sliced through without consideration. 5 of the assassins had been beheaded by Lin Feng in one smooth strike. The remaining assassins quickly retreated 10 meters. Their careful eyes were staring at Lin Feng. They were still very vigilant. They were all young and since the beginning of the battle, Lin Feng had already killed a large number of them. Lin Feng watched the group's movements through the raindrops. One of those people was wearing a black rain cape and was holding a folding fan in his hand. Nah, Lan, hi. Lin Feng looked at him with an ice-cold glare. That folding fan, that was a fan he remembered, Na Lan Hai's fan. He glanced at all of them, smiled coldly and said, so many outstanding practitioners, only a few clans have such outstanding people in Yangzhou City, but considering how many have come for me, is there really anyone outstanding within such a clan? Na Lan Hai was calmly standing in the middle of the group when he heard these words. He couldn't help but roar furiously. They all say that Lin Hai's son of the Lin clan is a piece of trash. The Lin Feng that I know is not a piece of trash. He is a real genius, able to adapt to all sorts of situations. He is also very smart and resourceful. Too bad that what? Said Lin Feng, too bad that you are a true genius, but nobody will ever know. Na Lan Hai said with an evil grin, even if you're a genius, it will be of no use once you're dead. With your death the smudge on Na Lan Feng's reputation will be gone. So Na Lan Feng hates me because of a minor incident, because I pointed out her mistakes? So she has sent the mighty troops of Yangzhou City to chase and kill me in secret? Lin Feng's tone of voice was clearly mocking them. These people were all well trained. They were not ordinary cultivators. When Lin Feng looked at them carefully again, he clearly understood that they were the troops of Yangzhou City. There was one thing that Lin Feng didn't understand though. Na Lan Feng had been the first one to disrespect and disregard Lin Feng. That is why he had made her lose face. However, was that insult worth her mobilizing the city troops to kill him? It seemed like Lin Feng hadn't anticipated that Na Lan Feng would use her status and power to have him disposed of in secret. Do you know how honorable and respectable Princess Na Lan is? She holds an extremely high status. Do you think that you have the right to humiliate her? Even if you die, it will not be enough of a punishment for having disrespected Princess Na Lan. Na Lan Hai said in a loud voice with an indifferent tone, as if everything he had said was perfectly logical. Princess Na Lan? Honorable and respectable? Lin Feng grinned. Even if she was the Yangzhou City head's daughter, it also didn't give her the right to be that arrogant and conceited. Lin Feng wouldn't have thought that Na Lan Feng would stoop so low as to use her father's power to settle a small and petty grudge. She saw Lin Feng as nothing but an ant. Her personality was just as rotten as Lin Qian. Do you want to kill me? Shall we get started? Lin Feng's dark spirit appeared behind his back. In the middle of that spirit, the spirit had no qi and made no sound. Many had not even noticed that he had released his spirit. Lin Feng had to pay attention to each and every attack as each one would be lethal. A small mistake would cost him his life. Lin Feng's dark spirit seemed to look around as if it had its own set of eyes. Lin Feng could sense everything that was surrounding him, including the ground beneath his feet. Nothing could escape from Lin Feng's senses at that moment. He could sense even the slightest of movements within the air. An arrow flew past Lin Feng's ear, so close it had almost hit. Lin Feng wasn't really surprised and had dodged it with ease, which made the one who shot the arrow look slightly shocked. In the darkness of the night, his eyes were calm and murderous. He looked like a fierce beast gazing at its prey. End of chapter 41. Hope you guys enjoy the chapter. Please consider subscribing and hit that bell button for future updates.